I love that new powerful video. That is awesome. That is awesome. Hey everybody, and welcome to the OSINT Curious live stream today. I am thrilled to be here. I'm Micah Hoffman. I'm the president of OSINT Curious. I am joined by two of my wonderful colleagues, Christina Licati. Hi, Christina. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Very nice to be with you again. Very nice that we have Loránd with us today, and James,
Yep. And
and you, Micah,
Ginsburg
Ginsberg.
5150.
Yay, Friday. How goes, guys?
Great. Nice. Well done.
That speaks to all of our souls.
That's pretty much
exactly.
it, yeah. Right.
And for those of you that, and we'll get to our special guest, who actually who was one of our founding members, who was a longtime OSINT, just an amazing person in the community, Loránd Bodó, in just a moment. Just a couple of administrative things before we get started. First off, Christina, would you put there we go. We got the banner along the bottom of the screen. If you are new to the OSINT Curious live stream, please take a look at that. We've got our website, our social media handle, a link to our Discord server where you can come and talk with us and Loránd after the live stream, and also a link to our Patreon patron website where you can help support us by giving as little as $1 a month. And without further ado, Christina, do you want to introduce our wonderful guest, or would you like me to do so?
I can do that. So we have Loránd. He has been one of OSINT Curious founding members. He's still a very good friend of all of us. We appreciate the work that you do, Loránd, in the space. Now you have a new project that you are working on. The reason we are all here, because we truly feel that we should talk about it and that we should share the work that you do. It is about the OSINT jobs. So Loránd created a new platform that shares hand-baked jobs for the open source intelligence community. But not only that, he also shares resources. He has a podcast. He shares career interviews. But actually, I would rather have Loránd introduce himself and the project and let us know a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks so much for having me on. It's a bit weird, as you said, because I used to be on the other end, but it's awesome to be back again. So I kind of in December, I left the OSINT Curious project because I wanted to pursue a new project, which is the OSINT Jobs project. So maybe I can talk a little bit about this. So feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. But basically, I mean, we've constantly talking to each other in the community. And one thing I've noticed, and this was not just like 6 months ago, but over the years, is that there was a lack of, a central resource where people can get information about careers and jobs specifically. Like I myself included, I went through lots of ups and downs. And also thanks to, the network, especially Benjamin Strick, like he was so helpful in, getting me in contact with people and stuff, but also on my own to find out, make the contact on LinkedIn or elsewhere on Twitter, and then to talk to people and get introduced, and through this kind of complex network, you end up finding something. And we also know, when we do training, people come up and ask like, hey, I would like to, follow an OSINT career path, and can you recommend some? And when I really think about it, like I know in my area, like online extremists and terrorism, it's amazing, like it's super broad, but there are so many other career paths and professions where OSINT plays a huge role, where I was like, actually, where else could I work with my skills if I wanted to switch career paths or something? And then I know from Micah especially, but also Ginsburg, like in this realm of information security, like I kind of like know a little bit about it, but I don't know anything in terms of like, the networks and what other kind of knowledge you would need. OSINT plays a part, right? But there's so much else that people would need. And then again, if you wanted to work in finance, how can OSINT be used? What career paths are there? And as we all know, and this is one of the main answers you always get when you ask someone, how did you get into OSINT and landed a job? And then oftentimes people are saying that, yeah, I kind of like have been doing this OSINT thing. I just didn't know it was called OSINT. So they were looking for information online, vetted the information, and then used it in some sort of report. And yeah, this is kind of like where I thought something needs to be done. So to close the gap and become a hub for people to help the community. And this leads me also to OSINT Jobs. The mission is really to help the community grow their skills and advance their careers. And the idea is that by giving everyone the chance to, to pursue their dreams and giving them the right skills or leading them to the right skills, that you can empower analysts worldwide. So you kind of like break new barriers, because by educating everyone, you will give people new ideas and they will use this and try something else. And then you're like, hey, that's a cool idea. So something new. And that was the main purpose or vision behind OSINT Jobs.
I think this is very, very useful. And most of us that have been a little bit more public in the OSINT sphere, we get questions all the time. You probably know that, Loránd. Also during conference talks, private messages of how do I get started in OSINT? How do I get a job into OSINT? And then I also had the feeling for quite a long time that to get a job as an analyst, you had to know someone that would direct you, or you had to conduct OSINT yourself. Yeah, fair enough. But still, you kind of needed the referral, you needed the network. And like you said, I think there was also a bit of uncertainty on what kinds of skills are required because it's still relatively new for many companies.
Exactly. There's one big question, and I was one of them who was like looking at at big OSINT personalities on Twitter. Justin Sites, for instance. I remember when I started on Twitter, he was one of the people who I looked up to, especially in terms of Python. I also did his course, and I was like, if he says Python is cool, then I have to learn it. But at first I was curious about developing and programming, so I learned it. But I was also curious about OSINT and how I could use it, and then I found out that hey, you can actually automate stuff. So one of the first things I developed was like a simple GUI with tkinter. I don't know. It's like this module where you can create like this GUI interface, and when you click on something. So what I did when it was possible to automate. When you manipulate the search strings in Facebook, and then you can see photos liked by a person, photos tagged. And I was doing like a study and looking for specific information. So I had to do this with 50 or 100 profiles. And instead of me typing it, I developed this GUI and then just put in the ID, and then it opened up all the windows. And for me, this was like magic, like, oh my God, this was me. And I found it so cool. But I didn't know where I could use these skills. And whenever I applied somewhere, I highlighted, I can also use Python to some degree, and for data analysis also. So it's pretty useful. And then, coming back to the skill question, people ask, do I need Python? And now I can give a better answer. Like, it really depends on what kind of career path you want to follow. Because if you want to work in, let's say, InfoSec, in the field of InfoSec, where you work a lot with data, then this is probably pretty useful, as in contrast to someone who's just looking for qualitative data. I mean, Python can be used in many instances, but just to give an example, like if you're just reading and translating documents to summarize newspaper articles or some sort of task, you don't necessarily need to develop a GUI for this, kind of thing. But yeah, that's about the skills.
I always found it interesting, the diversity in the jobs that were using open source intelligence skills. Just like you said, Loránd, I came up through cybersecurity into OSINT, and so I was focused on penetration testing and blue teaming and digital forensics. And when I started teaching other people and listening to those wonderful conference talks by Ben Strict, by Justin Sites, I started realizing that there were a huge number of places that use open source intelligence skills, but don't really call it OSINT. In your OSINT job site, Loránd, do you find that you are getting companies in that are using OSINT skills, but they're not saying they're doing OSINT, maybe they're doing due diligence or other types of things, and then you kind of say, well, that is OSINT, and you post it on your site?
Yes.
Or is it,
yeah, absolutely. So this is what I also try to do. So OSINT jobs, in a nutshell, it's more than just a job board. At first, I try to summarize all the jobs. I created filters and all kinds of things. So I try to methodologically categorize these different jobs. So whenever someone has an interest, let's say InfoSec, he can then find jobs with OSINT. But specifically with InfoSec, I try to not to post that many InfoSec roles, because for InfoSec specifically, you have so many other areas that are much better. So I want to focus on OSINT. I only post very like, let's say 60% focus on OSINT and a little bit of InfoSec if I find any roles. But coming back to your questions, yes. What I find is that there are companies that may use the term OSINT somewhere because now it has become super popular, but actually they use words like research, analyze, write reports, and this is often the case, that they don't necessarily mention the word OSINT, and I try to add it as this is also an OSINT job. And part of this whole project is not only for the community to provide these jobs on a daily basis, but also to work with companies and help them to figure out, how to find these kind of people. Because I believe that, OSINT has been around for decades. It's just transformed, like, into this kind of thing that it is right now, and it has become popular, especially since The Economist wrote an article about the promise of open source intelligence. I believe this is when most companies, this was in August 2021, open up The Economist and read, hey, what is this open source intelligence? And what people are using satellite images, anyone can do this. So, executives thinking about how can I leverage this? They're probably doing it already, they just don't know. So it's also about not just helping the community, but also maybe helping companies to figure out what is OSINT and how can they use it, because it's very cost effective. Yeah.
I think one of the other things that you've noticed over the years of doing the community building that you've been doing and touching all of the different parts of the OSINT field is that there is a really motivated group of people that want to get into the world of OSINT. And that's kind of what Christina was talking about earlier, where, we're all, a lot of us are seeing on social media, hey, I'm looking to switch careers. Hey, I'm just getting out of college and I want to get into OSINT because this is exciting. It's investigative. And so I think right now, Loránd, that resource that you've created that doesn't just have a job board, but it has a blog. You want to talk about the blog and the other pieces of the OSINT jobs site as well?
So at the moment, what you can find, as you said, is not only jobs, but you will also find blog posts. And these blog posts, I mean, at the moment, I just don't have the time to expand it. But what I have right now are over 10 career interviews with successful practitioners, and I'm expanding it. So what I tried to do was to reach out to people that are successful, like in their jobs, and to tell me about how they started their career, what are they doing right now, what is the industry like, what skills do you need, etc., etc. Like, what advice would you give someone who wants to get started and become successful? If you were to hire someone, what are you looking for? And this is the kind of knowledge that I want to extract, or these insights, so anyone can use them to their advantage. And when they apply and write CVs and applications, that they can specifically target these kind of things. Because if you look at someone, who leads a team of 30, GSOC analysts and tells you, these are the skills I'm looking for, you have to be very good at writing, then your cover letter needs to be on point. Things like that, for instance. But also many other things, just to get into this industry. I mean, I learned so much just by listening and seeing like the parallels and, understanding and also learning myself. So this is what I've noticed and know as well in this profession. If you want to keep up, you have to constantly learn. And because, this is like staying out, you can become out of date pretty quickly, I guess, with all these things, especially, when you get into this habit of opening up 20 windows, analyzing the information, synthesizing it, and then writing something together. Like, this is a skill in itself. Or even geolocation. And we are currently seeing it right now as well. Like, so many people have been working on this and doing like great work. And I know it myself, geolocation takes time and practice as well. So yeah, this was one thing, the blog posts. And what I also try to do is to expand the section to not only include blog posts about career interviews, but also very specific blog posts on how to write a summary, how to not a summary, but how to write a CV specifically for OSINT, how to write a cover letter. But I don't want to write these cover letters or how to write CVs because there are many recruiters out there who have been in this industry for a long time. So it would be best to find a kind of recruiter who knows, who is very active in the OSINT community, who understands both worlds, and try to get some help on that side as well. But also, simple things like providing a cover letter. A cover letter, like a template for cover letters and CVs, and also highlighting which skills people would need. So one of the blog posts that I'm currently working on is kind of like the analysis of, so I have handpicked now over 400, 500 jobs. So these are handpicked jobs from different industries. It's very qualitative. So it's not a quantitative study, but it's very qualitative. And what I'm trying to do is to read through the job descriptions and understand for this sector, let's say corporate security, from these top 50 companies that I found that posted jobs, these are what they all have in common, like report writing skills, this type of skill, this type of skill. So at the end, what I want to publish is a kind of like a guide that will automatically update itself with the latest skills that you kind of need in order to apply for these jobs. So as I said, corporate security will have, let's say, the top 5 skills, because just by saying I can do OSINT in a CV is not enough. There are different requirements for each sector. Corporate security is just one, frauds, anti-money laundering, cryptocurrency-based investigations. There have been so many jobs recently by Binance and all these big companies to understand what they're looking for. So that's another segment. And what you can also find on OSINT Jobs, apart from the blog, is a podcast. And just today we released a second episode, which dives deeper into the importance of languages. So here I spoke
with Skip.
Exactly, with Skip.
I saw that. Yeah,
he's amazing. He's an amazing guy, and he's running also specialist OSINT courses, but not the kind of OSINT course that we all do, but more language specific. Like how can you search a web in a different language and you're not a native speaker or you even don't know the language? So very useful skills in today's globalized world, I think. And I'm trying to sit down in these podcasts and again extract all the knowledge and insights. It's all about your career. How did you end up there? What skills do I need? And and that stuff.
I find the career interviews very, very useful and very interesting to read because you don't only get to compare your career path with somebody else's. You don't just get to get ideas from somebody else's career path and the way they ended up where they are doing what they do.
Yeah.
But you can also pick up the lingo a little bit, specific terms and ways to describe what you do. That if you are a newbie, you can pick up a lot of lingo, basically, of the way you describe things, and then go into an interview and talk about it.
Yeah, no,
based on what you learn.
That's a good point. And what I also wanted to highlight is it's not just about these careers and skills, but also like tips, also especially for those who are already in the industry. Like in the first episode, I spoke to Tracy, also known as InfoSec Sherpa, and we spoke about, or she mentioned, and I know about the situation when people are trying to exploit your passion. What I mean by this is they see that you are very good at what you do, and they also see you do this kind of like for free. So they reach out and ask, hey, I have a question, which is actually a task someone else gets paid for. And then this kind of situation starts where people are getting into kind of work that they do, but they're not getting paid for. Because they probably don't know that they could make money, or because they don't know what to say. And then she was saying something that really stuck with me, like a phrase that, what she was saying, something along the lines of, hey, I'm happy to help you. Shall I send you my hourly rate or project rate? Which is a very nice answer, giving
it's
someone
fair.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, everyone who's doing work should be paid. I said also on the podcast, like that's the same situation as, you have a problem with your car, and then you go to your neighbor who is a car mechanic, and then you say, hey man, you're so passionate about cars. Like, do you want to take a look and fix it? Like, of course not. You should pay him, right?
Well, it's funny that you.
Actually,
I was just going to say, it's funny that you mentioned
yeah.
that because literally about 10 minutes ago, somebody on LinkedIn hit me up and said, "Hey, I have this great project I think that you should be a part of, Micah. Just need a few moments of your time to do this." And my response was, absolutely. I'm always interested in paid work in the OSINT field. Please, reach out to me on this. And we'll see if they actually do reach out or not. But
That's
yeah, I
also a
mean,
really good one.
everybody wants just a few minutes of that free time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Christina. I'm sorry
What
for
free
interrupting.
time? Where is that free time? Anyway, it's not like we have that much free time. Yeah, you manage your time, so you shouldn't be doing somebody else's work. And the same thing is happening to me right now with those indoor social engineering tasks, but it was happening back then when I was saying that I studied psychology, that everybody would like almost everyone really would come up and say, "Oh, so I have a problem, can we set aside some time to talk about this problem that I have?" And yeah, sure, you want to discuss with friends and family about their problems and share, but it's one thing to do consulting and psychotherapy, and another thing to talk with friends and family.
Yeah.
But this was very common. So what are my problems right now? How is my personality like? And you give me an analysis. It takes time and energy. So yeah. So it's good that you have the career interviews in there. It's good that things are starting to take a form where people get to recognize this work as proper paid work, and you push this message, and that you have the podcast interviews. Oh, by the way, somebody asked where the podcast is. You can find the podcast, the interviews, and the blog on the website www.osint. Is this a dash?
Dash.
Yeah, but you can OSINTjobs.com is also
jobs.com.
fine. I own both domains, so it's good.
Silly technical people.
Or that one.
Hey, Christina, we have a bunch of questions coming in from LinkedIn. How about we tackle some of these? You ready to do some of these in rapid fire, Loránd?
Yeah, sure.
All right. First one, of the jobs that you're seeing, how many of them are cleared, meaning in the classified realm and government jobs, versus uncleared?
I try not to put in any cleared positions. One of the things that I don't understand, that's just a quick one, is asking for top secret clearance and then advertising it as an entry-level job and with a low salary. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but definitely I'm trying to stay away from this because you have dedicated websites, so uncleared.
Okay, so OSINT job says uncleared, although there are cleared positions, like Loránd says, you just got to look elsewhere for those. And those cleared positions are mainly in defense industrial based companies, in governments, and those things, and sometimes working with militaries. All right. So here we go. Here's another one. I'm going to summarize this. Any particular advice on how to stay up with the field when we're all really busy with work and with other things going on? How do you stay up with the OSINT field and OSINT community, Loránd?
Yeah, so that's a very good question and also a tough one. I have to be honest, I'm also struggling sometimes to, the stress level, work-life balance and all that stuff. It's not easy, but I try to, for instance, Saturdays are the days where I'm not touching my phone. This is like the holy day, and not to do anything because you can burn out pretty quickly. So I don't want to do this. And in terms of staying up to date, I'm collating everything that I see on the web automatically and also by hand, and put it in a newsletter. I'm doing this also on OSINTjobs.com, so you can sign up. It's free. And and I'm doing this not only to share it, but also to keep myself up to date. So I'm forced to go out and search.
That's great. Yeah. One of the things that I'm finding is the more I take, what's out there, process it and document it either in my personal notes or in a newsletter or a blog post, it really cements those ideas in my head.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Next question. Here we go. Another person from LinkedIn, An says, thanks for the very useful talk. I was wondering how you can get into OSINT projects as a freelancer. So, Loránd, of the jobs that you're seeing on OSINT-jobs.com, are there places where they're looking for part-time people, freelance people, or is it mostly full-time employees?
So at the moment, it's only full-time, but this is because I need to build up kind of like not only a user base, but more the company base that companies are aware of this project. And so far, companies have reached out, and I work with them in terms of they offer exclusive jobs. So they contact and want to get these jobs advertised on OSINT Jobs, which is free, by the way. Exactly. And then once I put them out, and so what I want to do is to establish this base, work with companies, and what's also in the plan is that to establish a kind of like freelancer database. So people who want to work part-time can become, member in this kind of database. But the question is very technical of how to do it, because I'm very aware that this field is a sensitive one, and I don't want to end up in a position where I can't sleep because someone tries to get into the database or whatever, all the personal data and all these things. So I'm trying to work out the best and easiest way for everyone. And just as a side note, when this Log4j thing came out, this vulnerability, I got so many tries to get into the database. Someone just out for fun. But yeah, at the moment, everything is good. So nice try.
Well, and let's take off the OSINT jobs hat for a moment, Loránd.
Yeah.
You've done some freelance work in your past, and I know that you've worked with freelancers like Ben Strick at a certain time and other people. So outside of OSINT-jobs, are you aware of, or what's your best suggestion for how do people get involved in freelance paid projects?
So the first thing would be, to kind of like tap into this network OSINT community, put out your name, and kind of like say, hey, currently I'm doing this. This is like kind of like my resume. Demonstrate the experience, not just say, hey, I'm doing OSINT, but showcase some of the work through blogs or something else. But you can also be like a quick message and be like, hey, I'm open, for some freelance work. This is my specialty. I speak these languages, and if someone is interested, please hit me up. This might be one thing, but of course, if you put out this message on Twitter and you haven't created a network yet, it's going to be difficult that someone picks it up. But I don't mean, I'm not saying you have to have 15,000 followers to be successful. Of course, it's going to help you, but it takes some time to build up an online profile, and it's kind of like your own business card. And if you can create a niche for yourself, and you can create any niche, honestly. If you want to do some anti-money laundering work, start a blog, showcase some of the work, and companies will notice. They will see, oh, this is interesting, and then reach out. This is also what happened to me when I did freelance work, that people said, like, that's interesting what you do. Can you help us with this project? Okay, I can help. But it takes some time, so patience is also okay. Or just talk directly to some OSINT people and ask them, hey, can you help me?
So I had the exact same experience. I would add that you need to establish trust and to honor that trust, because OSINT can tap into some sensitive areas, and whoever you work with needs to be able to rely on you and know that you're following secure processes, that the data you have on your devices are safe, or are after the project deleted, depending on your agreement. But mainly, that's why you need the network as a freelancer. That's why people need to know you, and they need to be able to trust and rely on what you say and what you do.
I'll also add, from a corporate standpoint, there are a lot of organizations that are looking for freelancers, not so much because they have current projects that they're looking to go through and fill, and they may be, but there's always kind of a recruiting period, and people are looking for freelancers to go through and do contract work and stuff like that for initiatives maybe in the future. So getting yourself, just like what everyone else is saying, getting yourself noticed, putting out professional papers or blogs or conference talks and stuff like that really does put a spotlight on some of the specific industry work that you might be able to go through and do. And that may be able to get you a phone call or an email in the future for maybe a small pool of people, whatever. We don't use anybody specifically, but we have a list of people that if we ever needed a freelancer for a specific region or for a specific purpose, that we have the ability to reach out and do that. So there is a lot of patience in regards to that, but absolutely.
And I mean, you have had some sort of interaction with them before, right, Ginsberg? So conferences, why did we forget about that? They start again. It's a great space to meet in person with others because, first of all, for networking reasons. Second of all, because you connect differently when you see people face to face, and they can understand who you are a lot better.
I actually got my job because of a conference, and I was doing open source intelligence on the space and trying to get into things. And because someone had posted like the idea of we'd like to get into this space and talk about some of the stuff, it was completely because of Twitter and because of a specific conference in the U.S. Whatever. So it was I was like, oh, this is magic, but it wasn't. It was because I was there and because you put yourself forward for things. So it is a lot of that as well, right?
Yeah. Definitely. So,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for everybody talking and everybody that is out there. Just if you are just joining us, we are OSINT Curious, and we are joined today by the creator of OSINTjobs.com, Loránd Bodó, who's answering your questions about jobs in the world of OSINT. So, if you're on YouTube or on Twitch or on LinkedIn, toss your questions for Loránd and for our wonderful panel of experienced OSINTers here into the chat, and we'll make sure to bring them up. We haven't one over here, Loránd, that's about income ranges for the jobs that you're seeing on OSINT jobs. Can you give us a kind of a ballpark
Yeah.
for what people might look
Yeah.
for?
So this is one of the main findings: the transparency. Many companies don't advertise anything in terms of how much they pay, which is not that great, which makes it extremely difficult to gauge the kind of salary range. There are some companies that do it, mostly governments. So, for instance, the Netherlands found many OSINT jobs in the Netherlands, like working for the government police or so, and they have to say specifically this is the range. And for some jobs, like in the US specifically, like corporate security, they also sometimes mention the range, which is state specific and then also city specific. So for someone who has no idea about the living costs, let's say in New York City, and then sees a salary of $100,000, so it might be that it's not enough. I don't know. Like I've been to New York,
It's
but
not.
I know it's expensive. So, and finding apartments, I heard so many stories. So just ask for twice, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and that's another that leads into another question. We've had a couple of questions about freelancing, which then brings up consulting fees or fees per hour or per project. And I think what I'd like to do is just kind of table that, because that I think is going to get very specific into the OSINT area that you're dealing with, the customers you're dealing with, and the work you're dealing with. So I
And
know
the
that,
countries,
yeah.
it-
Yeah, I mean
it's a
it's very very specific and very variable. So
Yeah,
we're not going to cover that. Um,
yeah.
Loránd, one of our longtime listeners, Griffin, the
Hey,
Hatless
hey,
Wonder,
Griffin.
has asked a question on how do you share a job with OSINTjobs.com? How do companies reach out to you and say, we've got
Yeah.
these OSINT listings?
So companies usually use the form on our website, which can be also used by anyone. But honestly, you can just hit me up on Twitter and just tag me or OSINT Jobs at OSINT Jobs. And Francesco Poldi has been doing this, and he always tags me, and then I see it, and then I edit, and then edit whenever I can. So because when we talk about sourcing jobs or finding them, they are all handpicked. So I was thinking of different ways of kind of like automate the process so it makes the job easier for me. But I've decided early on, after several tests, that automating this kind of process of scraping jobs and then adding it to a database manually, like I don't want to get into this business. And also, I don't like to do that because I want to find handpicked stuff. I want to see the like really cool jobs. Like just the other day, there was one. I mean, I used to play basketball in school, and I really loved it. And there was one job in the US working as like a GSOC analyst for the NBA, which I was like, that must be a cool job for someone who's into OSINT and loves basketball, like working for
Wow.
the NBA. Corporate security, like this is a cool job, like definitely edit. There are also some jobs, where I'm like, I can't see really who's behind this advertisement or who is behind the company, but they want CVs and they want information. And these kind of jobs I don't add. They don't add any value. Or also jobs that are advertised regularly and companies just harvest CVs for whatever reason. and there's no really an actual job. So that's why I want to do everything manually and add everything manually to the database. So handpicked over some mass approach, because for this mass approach, there are other companies and established websites like Indeed and other big companies that have been around for a long time, but they don't specialize in this niche. So that's why handpicking is better. Oh yeah, exactly. That's the one. NBA job, OSINT jobs.
I grabbed that. It was super easy to find. I mean, that's really a mark of a great website. I went to the website, I typed in NBA, I got the exact job that you were talking about. So, Loránd, congratulations on making a very easy to use site for somebody that is challenged like me. So.
Nah, you're not challenged.
No, that's really
yeah, that's
Christina, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking that, for example, if an individual is not really sure about what their place is in OSINT, if they don't know where they want to go, they like the skill set, they like the process, but they're not really sure where they should head professionally with OSINT. I could imagine that a very nice way is to visit the website, osintjobs.com, and to start browsing for job openings and seeing what is there, what the possibilities are. And then if they want to follow that like a specific career professionally, they could even tap on some jobs that are under the same branch and see what kind of skills are required.
Yeah. And what I can also say is, for anyone who wants to apply for these jobs, it would be greatly appreciated if you also let me know that you applied. That's for several reasons, but one of the reasons is to understand the kind of interest in what jobs people want to have, so I can then source it and focus more on these jobs. I know remote jobs, for instance, are very popular. This is also the trend that we're seeing now. I think LinkedIn CEO wrote a blog post on this, which was called, I think, some reset thing. I forgot the name of this, how he called it. But during the pandemic, many people realized that they don't like their job. That's the bottom line, and they don't like the way they were working, going to the office every single day, driving for an hour. I was one of these guys, but I had to do it in London for over an hour on the tube, and it's just mentally also very it's hard. And then you realize, like, wait a second, I can do anything from here, from my computer. So why on earth should I go to this office? And they're like, it's not important. So that's one thing. But I also wanted to say something else about these jobs. Yeah. So the companies, they reach out, and this is why you should apply for jobs as well, because the feedback I get is that the people they get from osintjobs.com is very good. So highly skilled people, but they get even people they weren't thinking of. So they go through the CVs and are like, it's not for this job, but we have one upcoming in 3 months, and this is actually a good candidate. So let's talk to him. So that's also a reason why people should apply. Exactly. But there are also some cases where people apply regardless and don't read the job description when it says you have to speak German, and people apply and don't speak German. But that's general application procedure.
So, Loránd, are you focusing primarily on full-time employment jobs, not on the website right now, not internships, volunteer opportunities, and that freelance work, right?
Exactly. So the freelance bit will be the next stage, and I'm still figuring out what's the best and easiest way to do for everyone involved to protect privacy and the data. That's the most important thing, for sensitivity reasons and stuff. Regarding internships, that's a very good point. So one of the number one policies at OSINT Jobs is that we don't advertise any free internships. Anything that is free and unpaid will not come onto this website. Even if the company offered thousands of dollars for this, I would never put it on, just because I went through this myself and I know how hard it is, and many people going through the same. That organizations, if I don't want to name any names, but there are some companies that, when you look through the job description of what they are asking for, is actually what's the difference between an intern and then a regular analyst doing the same thing for 40 hours a week. And just because of this, I don't want to get involved in any of these internships. No one should. We had some internships, and I specifically asked if they are paid, and it was also said at the bottom, like, they are paid. That's a great way to start. to get people into these positions, and also early career jobs. So, and the volunteer opportunities, that's a good point. I haven't thought about this actually. There are many great initiatives where you can volunteer, and but again, it's like a gray area of voluntary, because someone, you volunteer, you have to think about this. If you volunteer your time and you work and you produce some sort of product that could be sold and you just don't know about it, that's also one thing. If you want to just gain skills and the experience, but in return you get, let's say, I don't know, you get a free intelligence course and you have a mentor and you do something for the greater good. You work on something with the outcome. Like you can think of, and if this is remote, you can think about it because you get the training, you get a mentor, which is usually expensive. So that's the thing, but I haven't thought about this, to be honest, for osintjobs.com.
Okay.
No, it's true, because there's a lot of the old adage of like, oh, we'll pay you an experience or we'll pay you an exposure, and that is, it's one of those things where a lot of people don't understand how much they're worth at that point, and that's where you get a lot of those other questions: how to apply, how much do I charge, like what is the rate, and it doesn't set anyone off on a good foot, right?
Yeah.
So I commend you, because I think that is first and foremost what we should be doing, is bringing people into the space and talking to them, educating them, and making sure that they're not either getting underpaid or their benefit to themselves is not crushing their life, right? So
yeah, that's a good point. And what I try to do, but there are so many things that need to be done. It's just time-wise, it's not possible. But what I don't want to do is to become this kind of entity that says these are the rates. What I want is a community-driven conversation about many, many topics. Like, for instance, I would be really interested to find out how you go about, when Micah mentioned it earlier with someone reaches out on LinkedIn and how to handle these requests. How do you come up with an asking price for an hourly rate? Like, what do you take into consideration? Because many people or some people are maybe at the stage where they can, do some work and earn money. But how do you go about, setting up, thinking about the legality and all these things? Like, I'm sure there are many interested in hearing from someone who has several companies of, if you live here in the US, you should avoid this because otherwise, this happens, and always ask for this. And if they ask, always charge them twice or something along those lines,
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges of doing freelance work in OSINT is the overhead. When you do something on behalf of a volunteer organization, and you're helping them out with your open source intelligence skills, that's one thing. But there are a lot of laws and other things that you have to do as a business to accept income doing OSINT investigations. Some of them might require you to get a license or get certified or get insurance or become a business entity to protect yourself in case something goes wrong or in case there's ramifications, negative ramifications from your work. So I know that there's a lot of opportunities out there, and things like don't F with cats, and this new murder thing that is on Netflix, or one of the things where people are just crowdsourcing this in OSINT and they're like, we did it, we solved the case. They don't necessarily realize that they are personally opening themselves up to exploitation, to retaliation, and sometimes to business issues that will come up in the future. So you got to be careful if you're doing this for a business.
Yeah, this is exactly the kind of information and knowledge that I have no idea about. I mean, I'm not a lawyer and stuff. I know about some legal aspects,
Loránd,
but
I'd be happy to be on your podcast sometime. I don't know if
Mike is not a lawyer, but he plays one on the internet.
No, but I was exactly when you were talking. I'm like, episode 3. Honestly, so
we can honestly have a panel because somebody asked just a second ago, what about employment and that from overseas and offering visas and those things to people. You said that there's remote work out there. I think with international workforce, it may get more complicated. Are you seeing on OSINT jobs people offering visas and other things to come work?
So visas not in particular, but remote working opportunities. So just the other day, I published an exclusive offer with it's for a French startup. And the cool thing about this is, I mean, you have to obviously speak French, and I don't know exactly the details right now. OLINT it's called, and they specifically hire people, and you can work anywhere in the world. Basically, this is what they said, and this is also how I see the future in OSINT. But I'm sure, as you said, Micah, there are some legal ramifications that people have to be aware of. For instance, if you live in Germany and you work for a company that is based in, I don't know, in Switzerland, about how does the tax system work? How do you do this? Because what can also happen is if you start doing this and you're like, oh, that's pretty good money. And then, the German state, they will ask like, so where's your money coming from? And then suddenly you get a bill, but you spent all the money on a nice car. What do you do? Like all these things have to be taken into account, and it gets really complicated. And this is also one of the trends that's globally, like the workforce is changing because of COVID. People realized, oh, we can work from home. I don't need the office anymore. Not every profession, of course, but how will this affect the community? I find it cool. Imagine like you're working in this kind of OSINT company that monitors whatever goes on in the world, and you can ask people living in this particular country to monitor the news there. They have the language skill, the cultural things. Like it's extremely useful and powerful. But then again, it depends on where the country is. You pay a different wage. I mean, this can be advantages and disadvantages as well, but it can be super complex.
Well, and I think one of the biggest problems is that is something that the cybersecurity field and probably other fields encountered as they started to mature and become more public. Let's just say that because you can do cybersecurity type of penetration tests and hacking and other types of things for free, for fun, in volunteer things, in hackathons, when people start asking you to help them out, when people start asking, hey, can you just do these things? You think, well, yeah, this is just a natural extension. And you don't think, well, actually, now I'm working as a business. This is professional. And there's lawsuits that happen. There's breach of contract that happen. There's other things that happen that if you're not prepared for, you're going to get exploited in a different fashion. And that could be very damaging. So, yeah, I think it's very, very complicated.
Yeah, but I think this issue is a really good one, like a really good discussion. And yeah, to find out more, join our podcast next week.
Go to
Yeah,
osint-jobs.com and
yeah,
click the podcast in the upper right-hand
yeah.
corner of the screen. All right.
No,
Well,
it is a really good podcast, though. I will say I've enjoyed following along with the first episode. Now I'll check out the second one. So I'm really happy to talk with you guys
Thanks.
again.
Yes, Loránd, thank you for doing this work. I think it is something useful in the community.
Yeah, very.
Cheers, thank you.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing more and more jobs and the site grow and having you back on here in 6 months or a year we just had our 1 millionth placement of an OSINT person. I look forward to you being very successful in your work because that helps our community at large.
Cheers. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour here. Christina, do you have any other things that you wanted to ask Loránd?
No, I think I'm covered. I will be following the Twitter account. I have you post one more time.
Cool.
At OSINT Jobs. I will be following your work in general. Actually, I have subscribed to the newsletter. Just because I'm curious. I like to monitor what happens in the industry and the interviews. And keep doing what you're doing and keep growing it.
Cheers. Thank you so much, and thanks again for inviting me and let me talk about OSINT jobs. And thanks. That was amazing.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming back. Ginsberg, any last words from you, sir?
No, man, I think we covered a lot of it. This is really exciting. It's good to see you again too. It's been a while since we've not been able to go through and kind of all be in group chats and stuff. So, but it's good to see it, and I wish you all the success because I think this is a very beneficial and needed thing in the community. So this is awesome.
Cheers.
Yeah, absolutely. A great gap that you have identified and filled. And if you want to talk to Loránd or interact more with the OSINT Jobs Twitter account or their webpage, please go and visit osint-jobs.com or just
See?
osintjobs.com. And there's Twitter account and other places as well. There's lots of opportunity to consume the products that Loránd and his team are creating, and also to interact with him and maybe get yourself a new job. Thanks for being on the show, Loránd. Always appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome.
All right, everybody, we'll take care. We have been the OSINT Curious Project. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us, and stay
OSINT curious.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.